It's the greatest podcast in the history of the world.
It goes high up and under the full foot.
He's taken a ripper! He has a bounce, he crosses 50, he pins the ears back, and he drills the goal!
All the latest news and views from around the VAFA.
Here's the big man!
The big guy.
He's done it again! This bloke extracts some of the finest!
All thanks to Mequicare, proud partner of the VAFA.
Makes a name for himself with these long bombs from outside the arc. It's a long bomb from outside the arc!
This is for the love of the game.
You can tweet that and hashtag it bloody good.
Welcome to For the Love of the Game as September rolls on. You know that funny feeling you get in the pit of your stomach, the butterflies, the cold sweats. That's called finals fever, ladies and gentlemen. And we have got it right here at the VAFA. Jason Bennett alongside Matthew Donald. Matty, welcome.
Jason, good, Paddy, good to be here. And we've finally got a taste for finals action in the VAFA, and it was a terrific weekend last weekend. We've still got a few more weeks left of it, and I'm going to enjoy it. It's going to be a beautiful month.
Where were you over the weekend?
So I was here at Elstonwick Park, Premier Under-19 semi-final time. Terrific game between Uni Blues and Old Scotch. Pretty tight, actually, for three quarters, but University Blues getting home in the end. So they progressed through. They'll play St Kevin's in the preliminary final for that one this week, which was the earlier game.
You'll see that game live and exclusive on KTV. What was the standard like?
Oh, it was terrific. Terrific football. I mean, this is sort of it now. We're only the best of the best survive from this point out. So across every line, through every game, every team, you just get high calibre football.
Speaking of high calibre, welcome, Paddy Grindlay.
Very nicely done, Jace. The $15 that I've paid you for that compliment should come through to you in the next 3 to 4 business days. Yes, great weekend of footy, Matty. You did a terrific job with our man Hugo out at VAFA HQ. Can't wait to break down all the finals results around the competition and preview what will surely be a massive weekend of finals footy this weekend.
So, of course, it was the pre-finals bye in Premier Men. So let's start our wrap with Premier B. Semi-final weekend, 2 cracking games between 4 great teams.
Yes, thank you, Jace. A great weekend of footy at an exceptionally windy Preston City Oval over on the Saturday and Sunday. And it's probably right, I'd say, Matty Donald, to start with a team that's going to be first up to William Buck Premier for 2026 and first into a B-grade grand final for 2025. That's where his focus will be for the next fortnight or so. Donald McDONALD is the coach of Old Trinity, and I imagine, Matty, he's in a pretty good mood. Good afternoon to you, Donald.
Good afternoon, Paddy and Matty.
Lots of Donalds on this podcast, so we're going to try and wriggle our way through that. First off, mate, congratulations on being the first side into the grand final and henceforth, and therefore rather straight into top flight for 2026. It must be a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, no, very good feeling. It's a funny one because obviously you just want to really, focus now on the grand final. But, just the way that the VAFA is, if you finish top 2, you get promoted. So, it's really exciting for the club. I've had 3 years in B grade, and it's just given ourselves a chance to kind of get ourselves build a better foundation, right across the board with the club. We've still a long way to go, but at least we're a lot more advanced than what we were 3 years ago.
Donald, congratulations on progression through to the grand final. Of course, promotion to the Premier Men's Division for next year. Obviously, with the VAFA, it's a little bit different because while you've made the grand final, there is that extra carrot of being in the top flight next season. Has one or the other sunk in yet, or is the focus very much on the grand final in 2 weeks from now?
It's a good question. I mean, I remember last year, we were devastated about missing out on winning that prelim and going up to A grade. And it was interesting, a few of the boys said to me, do we really want to go up? Because, they had a pretty ordinary experience there, like in 22. So, and over the COVID time, the club, was battling a bit. So, and they found it very difficult in that season. So, I can understand that. But I think you want to be progressive and you want to play against the best, and you want to be the best club you can be. So I think to get the opportunity to go up to A grade is fantastic because it hasn't been a overtly stated goal by us, but I know me personally has been really keen to see if we can go as far as we can. And then the fact that you don't get too many opportunities to play in a grand final, I think it's really important that you just put the A-grade stuff on the back burner because, the most important thing at the moment is to compete as well as we can in the grand final.
Let's talk about how you got there, Don. So Exceptionally windy conditions at Preston City Oval on Saturday and on Sunday. The strong breeze blew to the Bruce Street end of the ground. The Tees had first use of it, got out to as many as 27 points, which ended up being the highest margin of the match before the Hoers worked it back late in the quarter. But the key element here, Matty Donald, is that the Tees, they only led by under a kick late in the third quarter. 2 late goals extended the margin to around 3 straight kicks, but they had to defend into the breeze in the final term, and crucially, Old Trinity held Old Ivanhoe goalless in the final term, in which they conceded 24 inside 50s, but the defence held up strong. Don, you must have been so proud of your back 6 or 7.
Yeah, they were exceptional. It was just an amazing feeling, really, because, I mean, when you're coaching, you're in the moment. You're just worrying about, like the next play, constantly looking at either end, are there spare players, all those types of things. But that wind was pretty big. And I must admit, during that third quarter, I was thinking, gosh, we're in a bit of trouble here, because I just didn't feel we had a strong enough lead. And, to get those goals in the last couple of minutes of the third quarter was huge, and just probably typified the team's spirit all year. Like, they've just never had this, they've never had an ability to kind of like concede. I think our guys have shown all year that, they're never beaten. They might be beaten on the scoreboard, but they don't concede, which is, I think it's a crucial component for any good team to have. And, that there's some of the individual efforts in the last quarter by especially some of our younger defenders, like guys like Ben Littlefield and James Ingpen, really stood up when we needed them to.
Donald, what was the message at three-quarter time when you just sort of built a handy lead, a lead that may or may not have been enough to defend, but obviously with Old Ivanhoe kicking with the strong advantage of that breeze in the final term, what was the message that you gave to your players at three-quarter time?
I think it always just starts at the contest, because everyone thinks that, the wind is a huge factor. But if you can win the contested possession, then at least you're going to give yourself an opportunity to get the ball going your way. And this is where there's always a challenge for coaches, is in windy days, like if you leave a spare player behind the ball, especially against Ivanhoe, you could be freeing up guys like Paddy Nash and McLean. So it's a real roll of the dice job, because you might win it forward, then all of a sudden those guys, with their skill and composure can just slice you the other way. So I think we just really wanted to ensure we're really good at the contest for starters, and just try to play the conditions. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to back the boys in, when they get the ball, of what decisions they're going to make, depending on what's presented to them. So you can't be, I don't think it can be too overly instructional. I think it's just more like, it's really up to the boys to stand up when it matters. And that's what has always given me confidence in the group, because it doesn't matter who's representing us. I think there's a really good ethos in the club at the moment.
The final scores at Preston City Oval, Matty: Old Trinity 12-12-84, Old Ivanhoe 9-13-67. 3 wins from 3 starts against the Hoers this year for the Tees. They're straight through to the grand final, as we mentioned. The Hoers will take on Caulfield Grammarians, also at Preston City Oval, this Saturday afternoon from 2:30 for a place against Trinity in the grand final. Don, it's a pretty simplistic question I've got for you. Who do you want?
We just want to play a team.
Well answered.
Doesn't matter who it is, mate. I think they're both really good sides. Caulfield have earned the right. Their form's been exceptional, especially over the last part of the season. Had their ups and downs early, and Ivanhoe and us have been vying 1-2 all year. So I think that either side's going to be, it's a new day. Like you said, we've beaten Ivanhoe 3 times, but that's not going to count for anything come grand final day, because it's just another ball game. So I just think whoever we play, we know it's going to be tough. So we're just going to be ready to go.
Well, Don, I'll try and follow up with a question that's not going to paint you in too much of a corner. Obviously, no game for you guys this week. So what's the plan for you and the team? Will you be down there on Saturday?
Yeah, I'll definitely go and have a look. I think, you got to do your due diligence. I don't think, the players, I think at the VAFA, it's not like you're at the AFL or even the VFL where, there's a bit of a focus on the opposition. I think our guys, through the VAFA website and, obviously with Prem data, they're all aware of who the opposition teams are, but I wouldn't be saying to them, you've got to go and watch it. I mean, we'll train, we'll just train as per normal on Tuesday and Thursday, and we'll have a run Saturday, and we just got to make sure that we're nice and ready to go. We've still got to have some really good hit outs to keep the momentum going. And you just don't want to stop and relax. So we'll prepare as best we can and have a look at the two teams fighting it out. I'm sure it's going to be a great game.
Well, Don, from all of us at VAFA HQ, big congratulations on being first through the grand final in Premier B. It's been such a competitive and difficult to achieve in division this season with how close the teams have been. So it's a big feather in the cap for you and your footy club. Best of luck in a couple of weekends' time.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Paddy. And Matty, thanks for your support.
Great to hear from Donald McDonald, the coach of Old Trinity. His team is first into the grand final in Premier B and first into William Buck Premier for 2026 with the win over Old Ivanhoe. Matty, they've been up there for a little while now. The Tees, they just missed out on promotion in 2024. They went down to D La Salle in the preliminary final. In the final moments of that game of footy, it's a great achievement in what's been a really difficult year to succeed in Premier B, such has been the tightness of the competition.
Oh, yeah, we've marvelled at how even it's been and how the finals race has heated up over the past couple of months. And whoever does take it out, it's going to be a well-earned premiership because they're going to have to overcome a pretty stacked Premier B division. And Old Trinity, now they're the first team there, and we await to see who they play this weekend. But it's going to be a terrific grand final, whoever goes on to face them.
Yeah, it'll be one of Old Ivanhoe or Caulfield Grammarians. The Fields taking on Old Carey in the first semi-final, once again at Preston City Oval, but on Sunday afternoon. And Matty, as fiercely as the wind blew on the Saturday, it was far meaner and far more unsparing on the Sunday, again blowing to the Bruce Street end, which is to the right-hand side of the ground as you look at it on the broadcast, but it blew particularly into this dead pocket at right half forward. And once the ball went into there, it's a sort of Bermuda Triangle. It just would not come out for love nor money. Paul Satterley, the coach of the Fields, he put it at about an 8-goal breeze. So that was pretty much the story of the game. There wasn't much subtlety to the style of either teams kicking against or with the wind. If you were kicking with it, dump it inside 50 and try and use the fat side as much as you can. If you were kicking against it, keep it in that dead pocket and create 12 minutes of stoppages, which was the story of the day. We started out things with both clubs just trying to get a bit of a gauge on how the breeze was blowing. Carey started with it. They kicked 2 goals, 3 to 2 behinds in the first term, but it did feel like the Fields had been able to blunt most of the Panthers' advantage with the breeze. They kicked 3 goals to 1 in the second term. Old Carey managing one of very few goals indeed against the breeze. One of, in fact, only 4 that were kicked into the teeth of the gale that was blowing at the Preston City Oval. In the third term, though, it was the Fields that's where they really won it. Into the breeze, they kicked a goal and managed to hold Carey to just 1 goal themselves. And then in the final term, they kicked 9 goals to 2, Matty, to really run away with things. They'd kicked 4 goals prior to the final term. They booted 9 in the last one. After they kicked the first couple of that final quarter, Old Carey coach Luke Giles, he threw caution to the wind. He equalised the numbers, and that created a bit of a possession for the Fields as that quarter ticked into time on. So Caulfield Grammarians 13-18-96, defeating Old Carey 6-10-46, a 50-point victory that doesn't really, Matty, tell the story of the day. Paul Satterley, the coach of the Fields, in his first year in charge of that football club, he was elated post-match.
Yeah, he was. He spoke about the pride that he's got in the group, said that they're such a coachable and a very likeable group of young players. And I think they've shown that in every game that they've played throughout the course of the season, and they've shown a lot of maturity as well for such a young, inexperienced group. And that will hold them in good stead, not just for the rest of this season, but in campaigns to come.
Luke Giles, we know that he's had a successful season because the Panthers, they won the C-grade premiership, the Premier C, I should say, premiership in 2024. They've been able to come up and not only, I suppose, survive relegation in their graduate year, but thrive and actually play in a final. And they exposed a lot of their younger players to a really high level of footy at the weekend. It was probably just unfortunate for Luke Giles and his team that they didn't quite get the conditions that would have suited their game style. Yeah,
and he acknowledged as well that when the lead blew out, they had to throw a few plays forward of the ball, even up numbers in front of the contest because they were all of a sudden chasing the game in that final term. And that created more space for more goals to be kicked in that final term. But he was very happy, I think, obviously, with the season. He'd already given it a tick, but didn't feel like by the same token that this was necessarily a free swing, that they had their sights set on progressing much further into the campaign. But overall, on the whole, it has still been a very successful season for them.
Yeah, I think you take it. I mean, we've mentioned ad nauseum on this podcast throughout the season, Matty, how close the competition has been, especially for a spot in third or fourth. They were the most hotly contested positions on any ladder, really, across the VAFA throughout the course of the season. The Panthers ending up inside the top four when the music stopped it, running into a very professional, I think, Fields outfit. A player that really stood out to me, though, Isaac Elwood for the Panthers. He's a slightly built wingman. He doesn't have much to say on the track, but he's got plenty to say with the footy in hand. He was superb, I thought, especially into the breeze where his run and carry was first class. Conversely, for the Caulfield Grammarian side, Matthew Clarkson playing in front of his father, Alistair, who was in attendance at Preston City Oval. He was terrific in driving the Fields forward at every opportunity, both with and against the wind. He kicked a really classy goal out of a stoppage as well. Ollie Lowe, who's been superb for North Melbourne VFL this year, but also qualified for the Fields to play finals. He was terrific in tight. The big story, though, Matty Donald, was a defender, Ryan Peach, who has, I think its last goal was at under-19s level back in 2022. He was able to sneak forward and kick a goal from just outside 50 with the breeze in the final term, and he was mobbed by every Fields player on the ground. They were terrific scenes to finish off the game of footy. So a big congratulations must go to Paul Satterley and his team. It's worth mentioning, Matty, that they were this close. They were so close to relegation to Premier C in 2024. They survived on the final day of the home and away season, and the Beaumaris Sharks went down instead. So, I mean, what Sats has been able to do with this group has been terrific.
And it just goes to show sometimes it doesn't take much for a team to get things going their way and for it to click, and suddenly you see a big rise up the ladder. And that's a lesson that any team in any division can take away from what they've been able to do this season. The Grammarians, that, you know, you might be struggling at one point, but it doesn't take much to get things going the other way for you. It can all happen very quickly.
Yeah, they've got some stars, and you look to their defenders as well. I cannot wait for this game of footy coming up on Saturday afternoon from 2:30pm at Preston City Oval. Old Ivanhoe taking on Caulfield Grammarians for a spot in the grand final and a shot at Old Trinity, and for promotion to William Buck Premier in 2026. Premier C after the break. All from EchoCare. This is For the Love of the Game.
Are you looking to grow your business? William Buck are more than just accountants and advisors who can develop strategic growth plans for your business. With over 125 years' experience, William Buck has expertise in navigating through challenging times and has been working closely with the VAFA community, creating positive change for individuals, businesses and community organisations. William Buck's team of specialist advisors work collaboratively, providing you with 360 support. Schedule a complimentary consultation today by visiting williambuck.com.
Hey guys, introducing GYG's $12 chicken mini meal. It's the ultimate value bundle. A mini chicken burrito or bowl, medium Chipotle seasoned fries, and a bottle of water or a soft drink of your choice. It's cheaper than cooking at home. Love ya.
This is For the Love of the Game, thanks to Mequicare. Let's talk Premier C. It was semi-final weekend there as well. And our first semi-final pitted the Tigers and the Jackers. St Bede's Mentone against Ajax. They battled for third spot all the way through the season, and that battle continued all the way to the final siren of their cutthroat first semi-final at a blustery Trevor Barker Beach Oval. The Jackers had use of the breeze in the opening term. They rocketed out of the gates. They kicked 2 goals in the opening 75 seconds, jumped out to a lead. They had 7 shots to 1 in the first term, but unfortunately left some points on the table. They kicked 2-5 to a behind. So they're up by 16 points at the first break. They then kicked a goal into the breeze early in the second, so St Bede's Mentone needed a response. It took them 10 minutes, but they got a couple of goals and stabilised the situation, got it back to within 4 points, and then, in fact, hit the front with a couple of late goals in that second term and led by 4 points at halftime. So the Jackers had the win again in the third quarter. They got back in front. The Tigers got one, and it was time for the Jackers to make the most of the conditions. They peppered the goals in the second half of the third term, but couldn't find the middle. 5 behinds in a row. Finally, they got a goal at the 31-minute mark. So they would head to the break with an 11-point lead at three-quarter time, but the Tigers would come home with the wind. The Jackers kicked the first goal. They got out to 17 points up. Tigers responded, got back within a couple of kicks, and then it was down to 5 points of difference with 15 minutes to play. And at this point, you're thinking, well, the Tigers should have enough time. 12 minutes without a goal. The Tigers finally got the goal they were looking for. Liam Bowles, a great set shot from the pocket. They got away to a 5-point lead at the 25-minute mark, and you're thinking, well, maybe the Tigers now, with the breeze at their backs. There was a stoppage. Benny Crongold, we must shout out to him. Hope he's doing okay. He copped a KO Falcon from point-blank range at the 20-minute mark of the last quarter. That little sort of 5 to 6 metre Falcon where it just comes blasting off the foot. He was KO'd, unfortunately, and taken off on a stretcher. And it just halted the momentum that the Tigers had at this point. Always interesting in a cutthroat final is a situation which team responds the better. And fortunately for the Jackers, it was them. A quick kick inside 50. Toby Sheasel marked at 35 metres out, went back, nailed the set shot. Jackers back in front at the 27-minute mark, and they would hang on to claim a thrilling win and get through to the preliminary final, which is a step further than they did last year. Heartbreak for the Tigers, a strong season for them after being relegated back to Premier C in 2025, and they've consolidated themselves for an assault on the title in 2026. But a fantastic first semi-final. In the end, it was Ajax 7-16-58, defeating St Bede's Mentone Tigers 8-5-53. Lockie Buzzard from the Jackers. Paddy must have been delighted.
He was. It was a really tough day for footy. Blustery winds down at Sandringham, meaning the game was essentially played in one half, which was pretty much the story of the weekend, Jace, as we've spoken about with Premier B. A very even game of footy up to half-time. The Jackers, though, wasteful in the third, kicking 2-9 with the breeze. So, yeah, had a little bit of concern if you're a Jackers person going into the final term. But 2 goals into that gale force win proved the difference. They were able to hang on. And they're stoked, given they are a 4th-rated team, they are looking at the preliminary final as a bit of a free hit up against a team with ex-AFL and current VFL listed talent in the Parkdale Vultures.
Disappointment for St Bede's Mentone Tigers. Brad Berry, their coach, but at the same time, proud of his group, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Classed it as a typical final and paid credit to both teams and the pressure that they brought across the course of the game. And, over the course of the season, been very happy with the way that the team have progressed and gelled together, but still bitterly disappointed to lose a final in that manner, to lose it by such a small margin in the end.
You followed them pretty closely last year when they were up in Premier B, Paddy, St Bede's Mentone Tigers. It was a season of learning for them last year. They had to re-establish a very young list against seasoned bodies. They got a bit of momentum. I think they won maybe 2 of their last 3 games last year. They carried that forward, had a massive group on the track over the summer, which is always a good sign. Brad Berry telling us over 100 senior players over the summer this season, and they've rebuilt a place where the players want to come and be. And he still feels like they're on target to keep progressing, to get to Premier B again. It's going to take another 12 months, but he feels like he's in pretty good shape to do it.
Yeah, and I think I'd agree with that assessment, Jace. You did mention back into 2024, they'd had a really, really tough start to the season. They hadn't won many games, if any at all, up to about round 14, round 15 off the top of my head. But they did find some momentum late in the season. They won their last game of the home and away season on the way down, and they did go down with some momentum. Heartbreak in the finals, especially with the breeze and conceding a couple of goals into the win. That's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's a consolidation year for the Tigers. They've been able to consolidate. They've been able to avoid the double drop, as we've seen happen to Fitzroy, a few divisions above them, and they've been able to blood some real talent. So keep your eye on the Tigers, I think, for 2026 in Premier C.
Brad Berry mentioned he feels like they've got the right chemistry in their group, and they've already got a sense of unfinished business straight away. Like they're already looking ahead to 2026 going, you know what? We're in a position where we can really build off this, which takes us to our second semi-final. Who would progress straight through to Grand Final Day and get the opportunity to play Premier B next season? And these were the 2 standout teams of Premier C for the year, really. Beaumaris and Parkdale Vultures. They lock horns for a place in the Grand Final. Bowie sees the early initiative. They were on top, both on the ground and in the air. 16 clearances to 5 and 6 contested marks to none. And that was against the number 1 contested marking team in the comp in Parkdale. But they didn't really convert those advantages. Territorial dominance wasn't there. Scoreboard pressure wasn't there. So despite sort of controlling aspects of the game, they actually trailed by 8 points at the first break. They kicked 6 behinds to the Vultures, 2-2. But importantly for Bowie, they didn't panic. They didn't fret it. They remained focused on building their dominance. Cal Heath, their ruck, was well on top, and they were holding a clear edge in contested footy. Their intercept game started getting going in the second term. They hauled in 8 intercept marks for the quarter as well. Good defensive structure behind them. Darcy Brown was fighting hard for the Vultures, but the reward continued to elude Beaumaris. They kicked 2-8 for the term. They were 2 points down despite having 16 scores to 8, and so many times you see in finals like this, the team that's peppering away early can't break through, and they start to panic, and the game gets away from them, but that wasn't the case for Beaumaris. They did a fantastic job. It was 3-4 to 2-3 in the second term, leaving the second semi delicately poised. Joe Florent, great running goal from 45 metres out at the 24-minute mark of the third term. Beaumaris to the final change with a 5-point lead. And just as a thriller looked likely, the Sharks just found another gear. They took off. And all that contested dominance they'd had throughout the day finally turned into scoreboard dominance. They had 19 inside 50s to 3 in the last term, took control, pinned the Vultures on the ropes, and rocketed away 13 shots to 2. They kicked 8-5 to 1-1 in the last quarter. And they did look like a team that had won 16 in a row. They blew the margin out to 51 points with 36 scoring shots to 15. What a performance from the Sharks. They are heading into grand final day in fine form. 16 straight wins. It was only Parkdale's second loss of the season. Both of those have come to Beaumaris. And Owen Lawler's men will have to dust themselves off and regroup quickly against a preliminary final appointment with the Jackers. What a performance from Beaumaris. Josh Burke must be delighted.
He was, and it's interesting you mentioned the panic. He was highlighting that in his post-game comments, but he thought his team held its nerve really well and were able to stick to the plan and run away with the game. He highlighted, amongst a lot of players, it was really even effort, it must be said, but Cal Heath, enormous in a key ruck battle. The Sharks midfield group was able to get the ball inside the front half and then set up the ground behind it really well. Berkey knows that if he gives his forwards constant supply, they will score, and they managed the Parkdale Vultures mids well in transition, as the Vultures have a real ability to run forward and hurt you on the overlap. A massive achievement for this footy club. They went down by just, 2%, I think, in 2024. Yep. They looked like a team that was going to have a poor year in 2024 in Premier B, but survive. With the way it worked out in round 18, they ended up going down. And I can tell you that the Sharks, they were hurt as a football club in response, and they really focused on consolidating through the off-season and were able to retain most of its playing list. And then they're straight back up to Premier B in 2026 and first into the grand final. Jace, a massive achievement for Josh Burke and his men.
First into the grand final in incredible form. So, Matty, Parkdale Vultures had been the benchmark all season long, 17-1. But sometimes you just have a bad day at the office. Yeah, it can happen, and that's exactly how Owen Lawler described it. A bad day at the office, beaten in contest, disposal, clearance, ground ball, just generally around the ground was second best. Paid full credit to Beaumaris, though. Credited the speed on the outside and their strength on the inside. And that balance in their game was what allowed them to set up the result in the end. For Lawler, though, he doesn't have any fear about what his players will, or how his players will react to this. He's got a great deal of confidence that he's got a very resilient group, that they'll get over it and they'll move on. They've got a great group of players, and they've got another game that they've got to win this week, and he's got great confidence that those players will be able to turn their attention to that one pretty quickly. So it'll be Parkdale and Ajax meeting in a sudden death final for a second straight season. Last year it was the Vultures by 44 points in the first semi before they fell 7 points short of the grand final the following week. So either way, it's going to be a great storyline. It'll either be Ajax turning the table on the team that ended their season last year, or to be Parkdale erasing last year's preliminary final disappointment. Tips for that one coming up shortly. After the break, we will talk Premier Women's. It was semi-final weekend there as well. We've also got some women's grand finals to look back on, including one absolute screamer that went to extra time.
Tickets are now on sale for the William Buck Premier Women's Grand Final Day function at Elsternwick Park on Sunday, September 21. Hear from both coaches pre-game and watch the premiership decider from the comfort of the function room with finger food and a cash bar. Tickets are just $30, including gate entry, and are available now at the VAFA website.
This is for the love of the game. It's time to talk Premier Women's. It was semi-final weekend. And gentlemen, we said last week it's so exciting to have the most evenly balanced Final Four we've ever had in this competition. Yeah. And so it proved to be on the weekend. They were both fantastic games. It was an 8-point margin in one, a 6-point margin in the other. Two really engaging contests, one at Preston, one at Coburg. We'll start at Preston. It was St Kevin's taking on Kew. Last week we talked about the three teams that were so standing out from the rest of the crowd, and that was Caulfield, Old Scotch and St Kevin's, and it was Kew that just sneaked into fourth spot, beating out West Brunswick on percentage. But we did say that the Bears were there to cause some havoc, and they did. I watched this game on community TV. Kew basically led all day. Through the first three quarters, they were outstanding. And it took until the last term for St Kevin's to come charging home. Some of those big-name, big-game players just came rocketing into play. Holly Keneally kicked a couple of goals in the last quarter. They trailed at three-quarter time by 10 points. Holly Keneally kicked a couple to put them in front. Hannah Smith then added one. Kew got one back, and then Hannah Smith kicked another one late, and they got up in the end by 8 points. But I couldn't have been more impressed with Kew. I thought Kew were absolutely outstanding. Unfortunately for them, St Kevin's just managed to get over them in the last term, and they win their way through to the preliminary final. In the end, it was St Kevin's 5-5-35, defeating Kew 4-3-27. Kew had a massive crowd there, and they certainly didn't lose any fans. They played superbly.
Yeah, I feel a little bit bad for Kew because we were up on stage, Jace, with Hugo Higginbotham at the finals lunch last Friday, and I think I certainly had Kew written off as a team that might be able to make a little bit of noise, but certainly weren't a chance at taking it up to the might of the Saints. But they got very, very close indeed.
They were the better team for the vast majority of the day. They were in front for most of it. It was even. It was evenly matched. But I thought Kew did a really great job setting up behind the football. It's hard to keep those big name St Kevin's forwards quiet for four quarters, and the likes of Hannah Smith and Bree Doyle and Kate Stanton. the players that have been there and done it year after year after year, they just knew what to do in that final term, and in the end, they got the job done again.
And the best players always have a habit of finding a way, no matter what the stage of the game, no matter what the stage of the season, and in the end, the star power was the difference in the end for St Kevin.
Well, Maddie, I'm really glad that you led me in there nicely with star power, because there have been few stars that have shone as brightly as Mia Cowans this year in William Buck Premier Women's. 5 goals in the Stars, 6-point victory over Caulfield Grammarians to make their way into the William Buck Premier Women's Grand Final for 2025. The Stars 7-5-47 defeating Caulfield Grammarians 6-5-41. Jace, I was really excited coming into this game of footy. Their first meeting of the season, a 4-point win for the Fields. Their second, a 3-point win for Old Scotch. And it looked like it would be Old Scotch on top at halftime when they were up by 25 points, but the Fields kicked 4-1 after the long break, ultimately falling 6 points short in a thriller. They will get the second go, though, in the preliminary final up against St Kevin's, and the dream of back-to-back William Buck Premier Women's titles is alive for Dean Anderson and his Old Scotch side.
Doesn't it set up one heck of a preliminary final? Caulfield Grammarians versus St Kevin's in the preliminary final. It'll be 2 o'clock this Sunday at Elsternwick Park. You can see that game streaming live and exclusively on KTV, Community TV. And no matter what happens, Maddie, whether it's Caulfield or St Kevin's that go through to play Old Scotch, we've firmly established now these 3 teams, there's nothing between them. So it doesn't matter which combination in the grand final we get, it'll be a ripper.
No, it absolutely will be. And I can't wait for this preliminary final as well. As you say, we've already got one of the big 3 in. And this game is the next 2 games in this Premier Division are going to be absolute beauty, starting with this preliminary final. And you're right, it doesn't matter who goes through because we're in for a beauty in the grand final regardless.
There were 5 women's premiers crowned over the weekend. We had a triple header on Sunday at Coburg. Let's congratulate all our winners. Now, we started with Division 4 women's. Westbourne reversing their second semi-final loss to Old Yarra. They handed the Cobras their first loss since being regraded into Division 4. The Cobras came into the grand final a perfect 12-0 in this division, and they got beaten in the end by Westbourne. The Cobras held scoreless in the opening term. Westbourne by 15 points, 13 points and 21 points at the first 3 breaks to set up what turned out to be a 12-point win. Westbourne 4-5-29 defeated Old Yarra 2-5-17 to claim the Division 4 Women's Premiership for 2025. Division 2, it was Latrobe taking on Parkside. Parkside had won 11 straight coming into the game, but it was Latrobe claiming their second win over the Devils. It was Latrobe University 3-9-27 defeating Parkside 3-6-24 in a 3-point thriller. So well done to the Trobers. And then Premier B Women's was the third part of the triple header on Sunday at Coburg. Old Brighton had finished on top 3 games clear of OMs. They reversed their 1-point loss in the second semi-final and won this game by 23 points. They set it up with a win with 4 unanswered goals in the second term. In the end, it was Old Brighton 9-6-60 defeating Old Melburnians 5-7-37 by 23 points. So Old Brighton, Premier B champions for 2025. We also had a doubleheader at Morley Reserve on Saturday. Our Division 1 Women's Grand Final saw the Griffins, Glenara Old McKinnon. They capped off a perfect 17-0 season, and they won this game by 21 points. And much like the Premier B game, they set it up with 3 unanswered goals in the second term. In the end, it was the Griffins 6-8-44, defeating the Monash Blues 3-5-23 by 21 points, which brings us to our last Women's Grand Final from the weekend. And what a game it was. It was the Division 3 Women's Grand Final. It was Ormond taking on St Mary's Salesian. Now, St Mary's Salesian, 15-1, finished 2 games clear of Ormond. But the Mondas knocked them off by 20 points in the second semi-final in a huge upset. St Mary's Salesian then came back to make a grand final. They led by 8 points at quarter time. It was Ormond by 1 point at halftime. St Mary's Salesian by 5 points at three-quarter time. A desperately tense final quarter in the grand final. Ormond hit the front 2 minutes in, and from there the goals dried up. Ormond added a behind. They went 2 points up. St Mary's Salesian responded with a point at the 17-minute mark to go 1 point game. And then they added another at the 21-minute mark to tie the scores in the final time on of the grand final. And it was all set up for a thrilling finish. And well, who better to talk us through it? The skipper of St Mary's Salesian. We welcome ADRIENNE Jones.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What a weekend. What a game that was between you and Ormond over the weekend. It was a desperate final term. Scores were level at the 21-minute mark. That's where we've set it up. Talk to us through the rest of it. What happened from there?
Oh, well, when the siren went and it was even, I think we all just stood there for like what felt like 2 or 3 minutes. I don't know, it could have been 2 or 3 seconds, but it felt like eternity. No one knew what to do. And that was kind of devastating. And yeah, they called us captains in, explained the procedure to us, ran back to the teams frantically trying to explain everything, the 2-minute halves, the 2 5-minute halves, that the coaches couldn't address us between those two, which I wasn't expecting. So we had to try and get our coach's direction for both ends, like sort of the both halves.
Yeah, right up front,
Yeah, it was really good though. I think for the most part, like we didn't change anything dramatically, and the team was like ready to go, switched on from the start, which is great. And yeah, I think that personally it felt like those extra minutes were some of the best footy that we played that whole game, but even all season. Like people just really committed themselves to it, and everyone was throwing themselves at it. So it was really tough but exciting.
So when you said one of the first emotions you felt was devastation, you felt devastated, was that because you were in front at three-quarter time and the scores were level? Because at the end of it, you actually had to come from behind and kick a couple of points to tie things up, didn't you? Why devastating?
Just because, I guess, not that it was a loss necessarily, but it wasn't a win. It wasn't clear. And yeah, it had been very even all games. So we had been leading and then we had to come back from behind. But I think that I don't know how Ormond feels, but it felt the same. Like I felt all of us on the field were flat. It was dead silent. Like no one knew how to feel and no one knew what to do next. So I guess, normally in a final there's a clear winner and a clear loser. It was devastating in the sense that we kind of all felt a bit of a loss because no one knew what was happening next.
What was the message from Terry and from you to the group to sort of say, well, we've got 6.5 minutes or something to get ourselves together here while we have a break, and as you said, give instructions for both directions? What were the key points of the message? Can you even remember it, or was your brain going at a million miles an hour?
I think I remember some. I definitely don't think I remember everything that we said. So there was a pretty clear scoring ends. The wind was quite strong. So he said, and Ormond had the wind in the first 5 minutes.
Yep.
So the plan for the first 5 was just to shut the ball down, kill the ball, and he said sort of flood their back line if we need to, and just play really, really defensively. And then and take our time. He said when we do have a mark, we do have a kick, really take that time, chew up the clock in that sense. And then for the second 5 minutes when we had the wind going our way, it was much faster. So he's like, if you can play on, if you can sort of get that breakthrough and burst through the legs, do that. If you can bomb it down without necessarily a clear target, just bomb it into the 50. So that was more of the frantic play, whereas defensively we were trying to be much sort of smarter with it and safer, short kicks, like I said, holding time and chewing up the clock. They were the main points I remember. Other than that, I don't know what was
With the remarkable way that this game finished, I'm sure the celebrations that followed were just as remarkable.
Yeah, it was very good fun. We all committed ourselves to the celebration just as much as we committed to the game.
What have the last few days been like?
So exciting. I've just been receiving so many messages. When I came off the field on Saturday and sort of finally got back onto my phone, there were so many messages. I had family interstate watching. And family come down to the ground. So there was group chats with updates. I had colleagues calling. So many people updating, and it's just been like that pretty consistently. And, people hear about it. So I told my friends, and then my friends told my colleagues and things like that. So I think we've all been the same. There's the official group chat going off, and then there's the sort of unofficial chat where people do make more plans for social, catch-ups and things like that. Both of them have just been non-stop since the game.
Adrienne, congratulations on the win. I'm just sort of thinking about your range of emotions from devastation to elation within about 10 to 15 minutes. It certainly seems like it was a really emotional game. Where does the win sit in your career as satisfying win? Was it one of the most satisfying of your career?
Absolutely the most satisfying. It was huge. So I've been playing since 2018, and we've seen some really high moments there and then some real low moments. There were 1 or 2 seasons where we were losing by like over 120 points every game. We weren't scoring. We'd be 0 and the other team would be over 100. There was one point between 2023 and early 2024. We weren't even sure if we'd get a team together, which was pretty crazy because before COVID we had 3 teams. So to go from 3 to potentially nothing I feel like I've really ridden the wave with St Mary's, the real highs and the real lows. So to get that win was phenomenal. We had some really major players unavailable as well, so I wasn't sure not that I didn't, I believe that the team had the ability, but it was just when you have these really big players missing out, I think sometimes people can lose a bit of confidence, and when they're so key to the structure, people maybe lose a bit of that direction. But I'm just so proud of the way that the team pulled together, and we really dragged it across the line.
Yeah, 97th game for St Mary's Salesian since 2018. Was that the start of the program, Adrienne? Have you been there from the very start?
No, 2017 was the first year for the women, so I joined in the second year.
Yep, so it obviously means a lot. You've been there the whole way through. When the Mondas, you finished 2 games clear on top, but then the Mondas knocked you off by 20 points in the second semi-final. Did that knock you guys around a bit?
Yeah. Again, I don't think we ever took anything for granted. I never thought that we were assumed to win or anything like that. The Mondas beat us, I think, early on, maybe round 5, and then again in the semi-final. Both times they beat us, we scored the same amount of scoring shots. They were just more accurate than us. They got goals where we got points. So that was pretty hard to take as a team, and that was something clearly we needed to work on. So it was a shock in that sense, and it was hard to take, but it wasn't necessarily a surprise. It just, I guess, motivated us more to really, really work hard and give everything we had for the next games.
Well, I have a feeling this is a game that you and your teammates will never forget. Congratulations on a wonderful performance. Enjoy the celebrations, and we look forward to seeing you running around again next year.
Absolutely, I will. Thank you.
Tickets are now on sale for the William Buck Premier Women's Grand Final Day function at Elsternwick Park on Sunday, September 21. Hear from both coaches pre-game and watch the premiership decider from the comfort of the function room with finger food and a cash bar. Tickets are just $30, including gate entry, and are available now at the VAFA website.
Are you looking to grow your business? William Buck are more than just accountants and advisors who can develop strategic growth plans for your business. With over 125 years' experience, William Buck has expertise in navigating through challenging times and has been working closely with the VAFA community, creating positive change for individuals, businesses and community organisations. William Buck's team of specialist advisors work collaboratively, providing you with 360 support. Schedule a complimentary consultation today by visiting williambuck.com.
Great to speak to Adrienne Jones. What a memory that she and her teammates will never forget. Well, time now to talk under-19s. We had one under-19 grand final last weekend. It was Sunday at Beach Oval. It was under-19 Division 3 men's. It was St Bede's Mentone Tigers up against St Mary's Salesian. St Mary's Salesian finished a game and a half ahead of the Tigers, then beat them by 2 goals in the second semi. But that was the game that the Tigers kicked 10 behinds after half-time. In the decider, St Bede's Mentone Tigers jumped out to a 3-goal lead at quarter time. There was 1 kick in it at the half. Then the Tigers kicked clear with 3 unanswered goals in the third term. Managed to hang on in the end by 14 points. St Bede's Mentone Tigers are premiers. 6-14-50, defeating St Mary's Salesian 4-12-36 by 14 points. They are the under-19 Division 3 men's champions for 2025. We also have 2 under-19 grand finals coming up this weekend. Our Division 2 under-19 men's competition. It's Old Ivanhoe versus Uni Blacks. This game, 9:20 Saturday morning at Preston City Oval. Old Ivanhoe 13-3 finished a game behind Q. They then beat the Blacks by 57 points in the qualifying final. Then the Bears by 25 in the second semi. Uni Blacks then responded. They beat St Kevin's by 10 points in the first semi. Then knocked off the Bears by a kick in the prelim final after being a couple of points down at three-quarter time. They've met a couple of times this season for a win each. The Blacks beat Old Ivanhoe by 33 in round 13. Old Ivanhoe, as I mentioned, then returned the favour. They won the qualifying final by 57 points. So best of luck to both those teams. The Under-19 Division 2 Men's Grand Final this Saturday, 9:20 at Preston. Old Ivanhoe versus Uni Blacks. Then our Under-19 Division 1 Men's Grand Final. It's Beau Morris and Parkdale Vultures, 2 great rivals. Sunday morning, 9:20 at Trevor Barker Beach Oval. They were the top 2 teams in Division 1 this season. Bowie finished a game clear of Parkdale to get the week off. It was a final 5 system. Parkdale beat OMs by 32 points in the qualifying final. Bowie then dominated the second semi between these 2 teams. They won and beat the Vultures by 69 points. Parkdale bounced back on the weekend. They beat OMs by 49 points to set up the rematch. They've met 3 times, 2 wins to Bowie, 1 to Parkdale. That game coming up Sunday, 9:20, Trevor Barker Beach Oval, the Under-19 Division 1 Men's Grand final. It's Beau Morris taking on Parkdale Vultures. And let's talk under-19 premiers, Holmes Glen under-19 premier competition. You see all those finals streaming live and exclusively on community TV. We had a couple of them in the opening round over the weekend, and we'll have the preliminary final coming up this weekend. Let's start our analysis with the Twilight game. Elstonwick Park. It kicked off and it was under lights. It was pretty spectacular. It was Scotch and the Blues.
Yes, it was. It was a terrific occasion after capping off a terrific day. Our quadruple header back-to-back games on the Saturday. And this was a terrific performance here from the Uni Blues, who progressed through to the preliminary final with a 31-point win over Old Scotch, 11-17, 83, 7-10, 52. Could have been, and that scoreline will tell you, the margin could have been greater. It was 4 goals, 11 to 3-3 at half-time.
Yeah, wow.
So the Blues got the jump on the Cardinals right from the get-go, but it was only their inaccurate kicking in front of goal that prevented them from having the game sewn up by half-time. But they found their kicking boots in the second half, did the Blues. 4 goals to Donovan Shear, 3 to Sam de Steiger, really started to get on top of the defence. And there was just no way back for Old Scotch. Tom Farah was outstanding for Old Scotch.
He's had a great year, hasn't he?
He has, and Hugo Higginbotham was all over this guy on Saturday. He's begging for him to end up on a VFL list. He was the star for the Cardinals in their last game of the season. But for the Blues, it's a really impressive sign. And if they could carry that form into this preliminary final against St Kevin's, they give themselves every opportunity of going 1 week further.
Well, speaking of St Kevin's, the second semi-final was the afternoon game at Elstonwick Park. And St Kevin's and Old Brighton played a screamer of a grand final last year. This time around, they meet in the second semi for a ticket straight through to Grand Final Day.
Yeah, 2 15-win teams in Holmes Glen under-19 Premier Men's this season, and it was the Tunners. In the second term, they kicked 5 goals to 1, and that really set them apart from the Scobbers through the second half. They kicked 4 goals apiece after half-time, but the difference in that second term, Old Brighton 13-8, 86, defeating the Scobbers 8-6, 54. You mentioned Tom Farah. He's been a star for Old Scotch in Premier Men's footy this season. You look through the Old Brighton list and you spot a few stars. Andrew Langworthy was superb with 3 goals. He was best on ground. Charlie Richardson also fronted up for the Tunners. Mason Sonyi, Zach Travers and Sam Fanning also on the team sheet for the Tunners, which I think might give us an insight into how they might line up for the Premier Men's final that they've got coming up against the Oldsvarians, the second semi-final this Saturday afternoon. But the Tunners into the grand final first, 32-point victors over St Kevin's.
So, Matty, that sets up a preliminary final between the minor premiers, St Kevin's, and the team who finished 4th, Uni Blues.
Yes, it does. It's going to be a terrific contest this weekend. I mean, we know St Kevin's are minor premiers and have been very good across the course of this season. They did play only in round 17, so a month ago, and Uni Blues won by 7 points for what it's worth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this matchup will be particularly interesting, given that the Blues have sort of just snuck into the top 4, and St Kevin's have been on top for the majority of the season. But this specific matchup, the Blues go quite well against St Kevin's.
And the other thing to consider is St Kevin's, because their seniors are playing on the weekend, they don't have necessarily the luxury of playing some of those young guns that have had some senior experience this year in the 19s potentially, because they might be playing in the senior team. Blues don't have that issue.
No, they've got a lot going for them at the moment, the Blues, and their form as well. As I said, if they can bring this week what they brought to the table last week, they give themselves every opportunity.
Yeah, it'll be part 3 of a triple header that we'll have for you coming up on KTV on Saturday afternoon. Starting off with the Premier Men's semi-finals, the first and second semis. You'll see both of those live on KTV and streaming on SEN and the VAFA website in the afternoon. And then again, we'll have the Twilight game from 5:15, this St Kevin's Uni Blues Premier Men's Under-19s preliminary final, leading into a Twilight Grand Final next week. It's pretty spectacular, isn't it?
Oh, it is. This is it. As I've said throughout the course of the last few weeks, it's getting to that end of the campaign now where all the matchups are great. We've just got great games, great teams across, and we'll have a really exciting atmosphere, no doubt, on Elstonwick Park. And Twilight, it's got a good ring to it. I know it's got its detractors, but it certainly does set up a really nice atmosphere and some high-quality footy.
You can enjoy the afternoon's footy on KTV and the VAFA website, and then you've got a game to enjoy in the evening as well. It'll kick off about 5:15 at Elstonwick Park. The preliminary final of the Holmes Glen Under-19 Premier Men's competition, St Kevin's versus Uni Blues. I'm going to break protocol here and just get a sneaky tip from you, Matty.
Oh, for St Kevin's Uni Blues. We are going to break protocol. And Paddy Grindlay is just about to jump out of his seat now because he didn't like it when you pulled rank on him last week about this, Jace. But I'm going to back Uni Blues to follow through.
Oh, the upset.
Yep.
Patrick, would you weigh in?
I'm staying silent in protest.
Oh, fair dinkum.
I think I think Uni Blues. I reckon over the term of the season. But
So St Kevin's out in straight sets and the Blues coming from fourth to make the granny.
I think so, but I'd just like to voice my displeasure about it. I tried to get Matty underneath the bus this time last week with Premier Men's, with your long-range forecast that you've been telling us about. And Jace, the fence sitter, says, no, we can't possibly be doing the tipping at the top of the show.
I haven't got the tips. See, all the rest of the tips are in the Premier competitions, and I know this is 19 Premiers, so I just thought we'd sneak one in early just to whet the appetite.
What kind of show are you running here, Jace?
Give it its own airspace.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. It's a logical place to put this particular tip.
I am looking forward to watching this game of footy, though, because it is straight after the Premier Men's second semi-final that we'll be calling on the SEN app, and I'll be hanging around to just watch the University Blues take on St Kevin's.
Time for a quick break on For the Love of the Game. When we return, we'll talk divisions with our divisional guru, BRAYDEN May.
Stay up to date with all the latest from the Victorian Amateur Football Association with the brand new VAFA app. Stay connected with live scores, fixtures, stats and news from across the Victorian Amateur Football Association right at your fingertips. Download the VAFA app today from the App Store or Google Play and never miss a moment.
This is For the Love of the Game, thanks to Mekwacare, looking after 16,500 Victorians each and every week since 1959. It is time for divisional football. It is preliminary final weekend, has been run and won, which means we're looking at 6 grand finals coming up this weekend in the seniors and the reserves across the 3 men's divisions. And joining us as always to talk divisions is our guru, BRAYDEN May. BRAYDEN, thanks for your time.
Hello, guys. How are we? Most exciting weekend of the year upcoming.
Less teams, more work. That's what it feels like, doesn't it? Because you can dig into everything a little deeper.
Oh, you're definitely right. And I think the worst part is you can't be in 3 places at once on grand final day. So you get to hear the stories. I'm not sure what conditions some people might be in at 10 a.m. Monday morning after you give them a call. There might be a few croaky voices, but there's plenty to celebrate for all 6 clubs in the senior grand finals. They've achieved one thing already with promotion, but only 3 are going to get to cap it off with the ultimate prize.
Well, let's start with Division 3 and we'll work our way up. It was preliminary final weekend, Matty, and it was an absolute ripper.
Oh, it was a beauty. I mean, we've sort of said all year, Powerhouse and Wattle Park and Powerhouse, they're the 2 best teams of Division 3. But we had a stunning upset at Elsonwick Park, Brayden, between Wattle Park and North Brunswick in this prelim.
Yeah, North Brunswick are a bit of the bridesmaid in recent years in this sort of division. They've lost the last 2 prelim finals, but they've got the job done by 3 points, a narrow margin. They only kicked 1 goal in the last quarter. I'm imagining it was into the breeze. Luke Russell kicked that, and what a difference it makes. Wattle Park came hard, but 4 behinds in a row in the last quarter probably proved pivotal. They kicked 2 late goals at the 28 and 29 minute mark. The Bulls, we thought they might drop away, but it's a remarkable effort, and congratulations must go to Dom Fontana and his coaching staff and his players for getting up to D2 for next season.
Yeah, 8-6-54 to 7-9-51 North Brunswick over Wattle Park, which sets up a Division 3 men's grand final. It's Powerhouse versus North Brunswick, 2:10 at Preston on Sunday. Powerhouse finished ahead of Wattle Park by 67%, then beat them by 28 points in the second semi. North Brunswick defeated Richmond Central by 38 points in the first semi, then prevailed in a 3-point preliminary final thriller, as we've just mentioned, after leading by 21 at three-quarter time. So Powerhouse and North Brunswick, they've met twice. They're 1-1. North Brunswick by 7 points in round 8. Powerhouse by 12 in round 16. Brayden, who do you like, Powerhouse or North Brunswick?
I think we'll have to go with Powerhouse. Not to use a pun, but they've been arguably the most powerful team in the competition. Like, their scoring power is just outstanding. And just talk about timing with some of the guys they go back. Like someone like young Harry Officer, he's only played the 7 games this season, 5 in the seniors, and he kicked 35 goals in that time. He got back, he played round 16 and 17, missed the last round, returned for the first final against Wattle Park, kicked 3. I just think their scoring power is going to be too much for North Brunswick, but I think we'll get a cracking game of footy no matter what.
And we've got a Powerhouse doubleheader because they've got their Division 3 reserves grand final. It's Powerhouse versus Richmond Central. Jake the Snake. 11:20 on Sunday at Preston, so that'll lead into the senior game. So it'll be Powerhouse versus Richmond Central in the Resis, then Powerhouse North Brunswick in the seniors, all from 11:20 on Sunday morning. Doubleheader live streaming on vafa.com.au. So a great opportunity to flick on VAFA TV and have a look at a couple of Division 3 men's grand finals on Sunday. Powerhouse and Richmond, then Powerhouse and North Brunswick in the senior game. Paddy, which leads us through to Division 2.
Yes, up we go to Division 2, and we've got two 15-win teams into the grand final after St Mary's Salesian 13-11-89 defeated South Melbourne's the Swans 9-10-64, a 25-point victory for St Mary's Salesian. And in this game of footy, Brayden May, we had 22 goals kicked, and as I look through this quarter-by-quarter scores, just one of them presumably into the breeze blowing at Elsternwick Park, a very windy game of footy.
Yeah, speaking of St Mary's coach, Clay Tate, he reckons it was just blowing towards the scoreboard down there. So defensively, he just put all out defence. Like, his quote to me was, I couldn't care if we kicked the ball out on the full going against the wind. He just wanted to make it as hard as possible for the Swans to score. And again, it just shows how strong that breeze was. It was a 28-point margin that the Saints had to overcome heading into the last quarter, and they kicked a remarkable 8-7 to run out winners, and then South Melbourne's run after they came into the game with a 7-game winning streak. It's just one of those things that I looked at and thought, you don't get this type of weather very often at September footy, and it was just a matter of throwing caution to the wind. A massive shout out to Angus Molden, who actually is usually the fullback for the Saints. He actually spent all day at one end of the ground. He set up as a forward. So both sides elected to play the loose, as you can imagine. You probably could have played 2 or 3 given how strong that breeze was. But in the quarters where the Saints kicked with the wind, he actually sort of played 50 or 60 metres out. And Clay reckons he kicks the ball about 60 metres without the wind. So he was taking some fair pop shots.
Fantastic stuff. Jace, it's pretty rare you see a 53-point turnaround from three-quarter time, and you think that might be unders.
It's ridiculous, but I mean, it was such a windy weekend of footy, and you see you go through the results right up and down through all the different sections, and you can tell just by looking at the stats as to which team had the breeze in each quarter, because most of these were handicap races depending on who had it to begin with, and then the other team had to kick back, and it's so often the case, Brayden, it's goals into the wind that often determine these games, isn't it? It's not what you do when you've got the breeze, it's what you do when you don't have it.
Oh, exactly right. I think I can't imagine how strong it was at Elsternwick Park, but being around just in general, I reckon some of these goals into the wind would have been worth almost 3 or 4 goals with it.
Yeah, so it sets up the Division 2 men's grand final, Sunday 2:30 at Carey. It's Old Yarra Cobras taking on St Mary's Salesian. Old Yarra finished half a game ahead of them and then won a 1-point thriller in the second semi. So this one is set to be an absolute ripper. They've met 3 times this season. It was St Mary's Salesian by 7 points in round 8. St Mary's Salesian by 23 points in round 15, and then Old Yarra got them by a point in that second semi-final. So this will be a beauty. Old Yarra versus St Mary's Salesian, Sunday 2:30 at Carey. Congratulations also to St Mary's Salesian for having their reserves in the grand final. That will be the curtain raiser at 11:40 at Carey on Sunday against West Brunswick. West Brunswick versus St Mary's Salesian, followed by Old Yarra Cobras versus St Mary's Salesian. Who do you like, Brayden? Who wins the Division 2 men's grand final?
Oh, I don't mean to sit on the fence, but this is a genuine 50-50 game of football. I think it's going to come down to the midfield battle. Old Yarra Cobras, on paper, the more experienced side. They've been here before. They're looking to get back up to D1. Obviously relegated last year, so they're back up into D1. St Mary's Salesian, a really young side that have arrived maybe ahead of time. Look, I think if Jack Hall comes back for the Cobras, he missed that first final. He may be the main difference. Key forward, the big stage, it just makes sense. And a real credit to West Brunswick in the twos. I just quickly want to touch on them. They won the D1 flag last year in the twos, and now they're going for D2 as well. So good luck to them.
And then on to Division 1, Brayden, as we round out our divisions, Old Peninsula and Q Seniors preliminary final, and Old Peninsula progressing through.
Yeah, no real surprise. I think the Old Peninsula and Ormond, who they'll meet in the grand final, have been the clear standouts for most of the year. But the Pirates, they're just a class outfit. The experience of losing that first final and being able to bounce back was key. Will Crowder was super. Bailey Pays, he'll be looking to do something his old man Shaw never achieved and lift a premiership for the Pirates. They've won a couple of reserves flags in the VAFA, but they've never got that senior premiership. So this is a really exciting time for the club as well. Nathan Jones, the former Melbourne skipper, played in the prelim, and it looks like he'll play in the grand final as well. So he hasn't played against Ormond this year, so it'll be interesting to see how he lines up, but it's going to be a cracking contest.
And it's nice to see that young Jonesy has worked his way into the best players this week. It wasn't quite the case when he kicked half a dozen a few weeks ago. Just looking to sandbag on that one, I imagine, Jace.
But it's great that Ormond and Old Peninsula, who have been 2 standout teams all year, are both going up to Premier Footy next year. They'll both be in Premier C no matter what happens this weekend, and you feel like, Brayden, both those teams are ready for Premier Footy.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think like Ormond we've spoken about, I'm sure you guys have spoken to Kyle Pinto as well. He's got a super young group at the Monders, and it's a perfect way to do it, I think. When you go up with such a young group, you can keep developing. And again, like Kyle's already said to me, there's kids in this side he wants to push to go play at the Sandy Dragons. VFL, if the opportunity arises, which is a great thing for them. And they just keep pumping them out their junior program as well. And then the Pirates, they're a bit more experienced on paper, but the great thing is next year they're advertising for an under-19s coach. They're growing their connection with the school, and we know how important that is to feed into the senior program, especially when it is so competitive against neighbouring competitions to retain players.
Fascinating game, this one. The Division 1 Men's Grand Final, Sunday 2:10 at Box Hill. And again, congratulations to Ormond for doing the double. They've got the Rezzies in the Grand Final as well. So Oakley versus Ormond at 11:20 Sunday at Box Hill, followed by Ormond versus Old Peninsula. Ormond looking for the perfect season. They went 18 and zip. They were 4 games clear of the Pirates, then beat them by 17 points in the second semi. And as we mentioned, the Pirates in a very good performance in the preliminary final to set up the rematch. They've met 3 times this year. They've all been close games, though, Brayden. Ormond by 12 points in round 4, Ormond by 4 points in round 12, and Ormond by 17 points in the second semi-final. Can you tip against the Monders in the granny?
I think you've got to go with the Monders. I think it's a great story if they can get this done. But again, I think the key thing is, as a neutral, you just hope for a cracking game of footy.
Brayden, thanks for your time as always, mate. We're looking forward to a big, big weekend of, well, not only grand finals, but semi-final action on KTV, preliminary finals, in fact, on KTV with the under-19 premiers and the Premier Women's. Lots to look forward to, lots to write about. Enjoy the weekend.
You too, guys. Thanks very much.
Hey, guys, introducing GYG's $12 chicken mini meal. It's the ultimate value bundle. A mini chicken burrito or bowl, medium Chipotle seasoned fries, and a bottle of water or a soft drink of your choice. It's cheaper than cooking at home. Love ya.
Stay up to date with all the latest from the Victorian Amateur Football Association with the brand new VAFA app. Stay connected with live scores, fixtures, stats and news from across the Victorian Amateur Football Association right at your fingertips. Download the VAFA app today from the App Store or Google Play and never miss a moment.
Well, that brings us through to tips time on For the Love of the Game, and we are going to start with Premier Women's. It is St Kevin's taking on Caulfield Grammarians, as we spoke about earlier. 2 very, very worthy grand finalists. Only one of them can make it. Paddy Grindlay, who makes it?
I'm going to go Caulfield
Wow,
to respond.
okay.
So we're going to get a bit of a change up here for the grand final. We're going to get a repeat of the second semi-final. Old Scotch to play off against Caulfield. I think they'll beat St Kevin's.
Yeah, I'm going to go Caulfield as well based on the results of week 1 of the finals. I think they'll just have a bit too much for St Kevin's in this one.
That brings us to Premier C. Parkdale taking on Ajax. The Jackers, as we mentioned, winning that thriller. Parkdale humbled in the end by Beau Morris. Do the Vultures bounce back?
Yeah, I've got the Vultures bouncing back here. We heard a little bit earlier on from Lockie Buzzard, and he said, they've got a bit of a free swing here against a very experienced Vultures team. I think they are going to win through, and they will be moving up to Premier B for 2026.
Yeah, going with Parkdale on this one, and just going to write off last week as a bad day at the office, and they'll be keen to respond. And what better stage to do that than the preliminary final weekend?
Premier B, Paddy's specialty. Old Ivanhoe taking on Caulfield Grammarians. Jared Geeshan taking on Paul Satterley. Who wins and why?
I have Old Ivanhoe. I have been pretty strong since the pre-season on saying that it will be a Hoers and Trinity grand final. This will be a great game of footy out of Preston. I'm hoping for more relaxed conditions as far as the breeze goes, so we can see both these teams in their pomp. I'm excited to see the Hoers big 4, the likes of Murkov and Naish, Murphy. I'll make a big 5, why not? Charlie Naish, Toby McLean as well. Charlie was so superb for the Hoers last weekend in that loss, but the fields were too good for the Panthers. They played the ground exceptionally well, and we know how good they are in the wind, considering they like to play their footy at Glen Huntly Park, where it is exceptionally windy. I'm going to take the Hoers, though. They've had such a superb season, 14 wins and 4 losses. They just haven't been able to pass the Trinity test yet. They'll get another go, though. I have them coming up to William Buck Premier for 2026 and playing in the Premier B grand final.
In fact, for the finals luncheon the other day at Zinc, didn't you also have whoever lost the game between Trinity and Ivanhoe going on to win the flag?
And I think you asked me to explain that, and I declined to do so.
Would you like to elaborate now?
No. Jared Geeshan, we did have a conversation, and he said, geez, we're in your hands now, Paddy. I'm hoping that you're right. He did have a good look at the fields. He was in attendance with Donald McDonald to watch the fields beat the Panthers. This will be a great game of footy, and I encourage you, if you live out near Preston, to get out and watch this one.
your logic. I just do want to dig into it just for a moment. So are you thinking that Trinity and Ivanhoe, they'll both show their hands in the second semi-final? Whoever loses will make the adjustments and that'll put them in good stead on grand final day?
My theory with finals is that you just need to keep the momentum rolling. I think sometimes a week off does you a bit of a disservice. You'll lose that momentum week to week to week. And I think Ivanhoe have shown me, and Trinity have shown me throughout the season, that they play best when they've been stung the week beforehand. So I think Old Ivanhoe, this has been the little kick in the pants that they need. Now that they're fighting for their lives, I think we'll see their best footy, which they have been searching for about the last 6 weeks or so.
Who will join Old Trinity in Premier Men's next season, Matty Donald?
Well, Old Ivanhoe have gone 2 for 2 against Caulfield so far this season. Now, admittedly, that last contest was back in round 10, but I'm expecting them to make it 3 from 3 here this time around. The proven form over the course of the entire season, as Paddy said, we've had our 1 and 2 seed for quite a while. I'm expecting that form will continue to hold here, and we'll get Old Ivanhoe and Old Trinity again in the grand final.
Which brings us to Premier Men's and our semi-finals. They'll be played simultaneously on Saturday afternoon. First up, it is our first semi-final between St Kevin's and Old Scotch. Both these games will be available live streaming on KTV with radio coverage on the VAFA website and the SEN app. So let's start at Trevor Barker Oval. Our broadcast will kick off at 1:45 for a 2 p.m. bounce. It's the first semi-final, cutthroat action. It's St Kevin's and Old Scotch, and leading the call will be Matthew Donald.
I can't wait for this game. This is going to be such a good contest. Going back, the rivalry between these two, going back to the colleges separated by the Yarra River, they do not like each other, St Kevin's and Scotch. So this is going to be on for young and old on Saturday, and I'm pleased I'm going to be a part of it. You've got one side that's been right up there, just behind, I suppose, the pace setters for most of the season, St Kevin's, but firmly entrenched inside the top 4. Coming up against Old Scotch, who have had to tread water without a lot of their stars for most of the season, but the support cast are hung in there long enough just for the stars to get back.
The cavalry's arrived.
It has, and in style too. They have rocketed into top 4 calculations. The 9-9 record doesn't do justice to how well they've played over the last couple of weeks. They've been probably the informed team of the competition in the lead into finals with the way that they've played. So we've got the 4 best, or at least the 4 most informed teams in the competition battling it out right now. It's going to be an absolute beauty for these two. Cannot wait.
And it's fascinating because their form lines and their path to this game, this cutthroat game, very different. Old Scotch have been fighting for their survival for a month now, which is tiring. St Kevin's, as they often do, just get themselves into a comfortable position. They know they're going to be third for a few weeks now. They've rested players. They've been able to get themselves primed for this game. Scotch had to throw everything at it to make this game. Paddy, your thoughts before we get your tip?
Well, this is your stat, Matty Donald, so I'm reluctant to read it out, but I think Old Scotch are the only William Buck Premier team since at least 2011 to enter finals without a positive ledger, wins versus losses. Is that correct?
That's correct. So they've got a 9-9 record, and since at least 2011, every finals team has won at least more than half of its games.
Remarkable stuff. And we have spoken to Mark Natt, and we know that he was the one who was driving that argument to his players who might have thought that their season was coming to an end a few weeks ago.
Never in doubt.
Never in doubt. So they've split the points this season. They played back in round 1. Old Scotch won that game by 14 points. And then again in round 9, where at the college it was St Kevin's by 11 points. And it's, of course, a replay or a repeat of last year's preliminary final where Will Clark went nuts and Old Scotch kicked 7-1 final quarter goals to win that one by 44 points. I think Scotch will win this game of footy. I think if they were going to have a wobble with reintroducing all those players, the VFL-listed guys that have come back into this team, the wobble would have been a couple of weeks ago. There will be at least 3 forced changes, though, because Hugo Brummel hasn't qualified. Neither has Tyler Sellers. Neither has Ned McGuinness. They might. I'll be looking at whether Angus Simons and Will Townsend play in this game of footy as well, because they do have some depth there if those guys can play. I do have Old Scotch winning this game of footy. I've been flipping a coin for the last week. It keeps coming up, Mark Knapp. I think the Cards will keep their premiership defence alive.
Margin?
Let's go. It'll come in from 44 points from the last final series. Let's go with 11 points.
11 points. Matty, who do you like and why?
Well, there's a couple of theories that go against Scotch. And firstly, they've played effectively 3 elimination finals leading up to this. And how mentally fatiguing can that be for them? And can they back
They've had the
themselves
week
up
off,
again?
though, haven't they?
That's very true. And the other one, if we look at it in the cold light of day, this is a team that spent the entire year in the top 4 against a team that spent the entire year outside the top 4. And is that the sort of thing that we're going to see in the finals? But then again,
different teams,
yeah. So it's that theory doesn't really apply. And Scotch have been in terrific form of late, whereas St Kevin's haven't necessarily been in bad form, but certainly not have been on the level of Scotch have in the last month.
But that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah. What does the week off do to all of that?
Old Scotch's ceiling might be higher, but St Kevin's floor is higher.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to tip St Kevin's as the team that have done the work over the entire season, the body of work over the entire home and away campaign. They've spent all season inside the top 4, as against a side that spent most of it outside the top 4. And I know the teams have changed up a fair bit, at least from a Cardinals point of view, but I'm going to back St Kevin's here.
So 1-1. Paddy for Old Scotch, Matty for St Kevin's. And then that game will be a 1:45 broadcast start for a 2 p.m. bounce. Our second semi-final, also live on SEN, KTV and the VAFA website, is Old Brighton taking on Old Zaverians. Have been the top 2 teams all season long. This game at Elsternwick Park. 2:15, our coverage will begin for a 2:30 bounce, and Paddy Grindlay will be leading the call.
Yeah, so Old Brighton by 61 points back in round 6, by 33 points back in round 15. The Zavs, they've lost 3 games this year, 2 of them to the Tunners and once back in round 2 to St Kevin's. So it's a bogey team. They're going to have to do something, the Zavs, that they haven't done all year and beat the Tunners, and I don't think they will. I think Old Brighton win this game of footy, and I think they qualify first for the grand final. My eye will be absolutely on the team sheets ahead of this one. I was speaking to a few people out at Zinc for the finals launch about this, the fitness of Zav's co-skipper Marcus Stavro. I don't reckon he'll get up, is my gut feel. I don't have anything to back me up there, but he had the grade 3 syndesmosis. He had surgery on that ankle. He was in a moon boot the last I saw him 3 or 4 weeks ago. I just don't think the turnaround has been long enough for Marcus Stavro to play in a final, especially on a fast deck at Elsternwick Park, where you're going to have to cover the entire ground. It's not going to be a wet, cold day where you can sit in the middle of the ground and nest the footy and play that contested style that Marcus Stavro plays so well. So we know the Zavs can cover his absence. Sam Hansen strikes me as a player who's come into this team and he's played a terrific role through the midfield. I just think the Tunners are too strong at this time of the season. And once again, they're going to be first into the grand final, I think.
Matthew Donald, your thoughts on Old Brighton and Old Zavs?
Well, the last time these two teams played, I really put my reputation on the line. But I'm not. I've escaped the lines, and I'm not going to go back and retrieve my hat with that one and be quite so bold this time around. Yeah, it's the unavailability of some of Old Zavs' absolute stars that really worry me here. And I know that they've got insane depth, and that there's not going to be a significant drop off in quality. They'll have some good players still coming in, but that star power is what you really need at this time of year. And I just think Old Brighton have more of that at their disposal than Old Zavs do. And that's going to be what tips the scales in favour for Old Brighton to progress straight through to the grand final in this one.
It's going to be a fantastic weekend of footy up and down the divisions. Let's have a look at our VAFA media schedule for the weekend. Saturday afternoon, as I mentioned, live streaming on KTV and SEN and the VAFA website. You'll get audio coverage on SEN and the VAFA website, live pictures on Community TV. It's the first semi-final of the Premier Men's competition from 1:45 at St Kevin's versus Old Scotch. The second semi-final from 2:15, Old Brighton and Old Zavs, into the Under-19s Premier Men's preliminary final between St Kevin's and University Blues. You'll see that live and exclusive on KTV from 5:15 Saturday afternoon. Cal Cummins of the team bringing you that one. Then on Sunday, we have the Premier Women's preliminary final on KTV, live and exclusively from 2 p.m. Sunday. It's Caulfield Grammarians taking on St Kevin's. Adam Palombi and the team will bring you all the action from Elsternwick Park. We've also got a couple of live streams. Powerhouse, their double header at Preston City Oval, at Division 3 men's reserves into the Division 3 men's seniors. You can see that double header from 11:20 on Sunday morning on VAFA TV. It's Powerhouse versus Richmond Central in the reserves. And then the big one, the grand final of the senior competition, Powerhouse taking on North Brunswick from 2:10 on Sunday afternoon. Both those games on VAFA TV. Keep an eye on VAFA socials. Keep an eye on the VAFA website as clubs come on board and want to get their finals and grand finals streamed throughout the week. Those extra games will pop up on the VAFA website and our socials. It always is a wonderful weekend, this one. There's great football action up and down through the divisions. Best of luck to everyone involved in finals, particularly those in cutthroat and grand finals. So much to look forward to for next week. We can't wait to break it all down with you for the love of the game.